All right, and welcome to I Protest. This is Donald Jeffries talking to you. We do every Friday from 5 to 7 p.m. Eastern on I Protest, just outside the swamp infested Washington, D.C. Sorry we're running a few minutes behind. We're trying to get things coordinated. We have a guest from a long distance away. Matt is in South Africa, which is a hotbed of conversation at the moment with the 54 migrants or whatever it was that came over and shook things up like
Yeah.
the millions of other migrants haven't. But these ones get everyone's attention for whatever reason. So Matt is just trying to make it in South Africa. So I thought it was important to have somebody on, and he was kind enough to come on to try to give us a firsthand report because we hear so many different things. I mean, most of us in the alt media are accustomed to hearing horror stories of what's happening to the white farmers, especially, and the rape rates over there, and just the crime and everything. And we assume the Afrikaners are not being treated well, but then you hear the other side claiming that's all myth, whatever. So I know what side I tend to believe, but we want to have somebody who's there can tell us the truth. So Matt, thanks for coming on the show. Appreciate it.
Sure, no problem. Good to be here.
Great. Well, so you can tell it's night there. I think it's 11 p.m. there, so I appreciate you
Yeah.
staying up late with us. So um, we may only keep you for an hour unless you want to go longer than that. But so tell us, first of all, how long have you always lived in South Africa, or did you ever
Yeah.
consider leaving, or what's the story? You're a native-born Afrikaner?
I mean, the Afrikaans, it's more like an ethnic group. Um, so, I mean, I do have Afrikaans heritage, but I'm not exactly an Afrikaner.
Oh, okay,
Um,
okay.
yeah, and I'm born and raised here. And yeah, of course, I've thought about leaving. I mean, it's something that you always think about. Every time there's a horror story, you're like, I've got to get out of here. But I just end up
Yeah.
staying.
So where are you? Are you on a farm, or are you somewhere else?
No, well, right now I'm to the west of Johannesburg. So, yeah, I don't know if you know anything about the geography here, but yeah, like there's basically three places in Joburg. In South Africa, there's Joburg, Durban, and Cape Town, and then small
Right.
places around the side. So I'm near Johannesburg.
So it's really interesting to hear from you then, because the people that we see, the Afrikaners, and I'm basically saying every white there's an Afrikaner, and you corrected me on that. Thank you. But the white South Africans we hear the most about are the farmers, and that's
Yeah.
because I think they own a huge amount of the land. But I mean, that I think this is what I've heard is because they developed it from nothing, and so they made it work. So to have to take it away from them seems unfair. But so someone like you, how many are there? Many people like where you live? Is it integrated? Do you live around a lot of whites, or you live around mostly black people?
Um, I mean, in a given day, most of the people that I see are black. Um, I'd say if I don't see my family, probably everyone I deal with in a day is black. But the area that I stay in is like very Afrikaans. So we've got a place here called Krugersdorp, and that's a lot of Afrikaans people living there. Um, so it's I mean, I'd say that it is integrated. I mean, you hear these horror stories about things going on, and I mean, these things do happen, but it's not only to white South Africans. The crime affects everyone here. Um, you hear horror stories from black people as well living in townships about the violence they deal with on a day-to-day basis.
Mhm.
It's like nothing, as a white that I deal with on a daily basis. But yeah, I mean, like just horrible things like people getting held up, at knife point for the equivalent of $1. Um, People getting killed for amounts of that. It's the crime's horrific.
No, so now. So and I don't know if you're even old enough, but I mean, as far as did you have any experience living under apartheid? Can you tell what the difference is since the ANC
No,
took power?
no, I've only ever known the ANC being in power here. Um,
Okay.
I've heard things from people about how it was different, but yeah, that's not really something I can speak to.
What do people say, like your family, whatever, the people that are older, what do they say about how it was under apartheid, or for them? Was it, I'm assuming maybe it was better for them, for the white people.
I mean, I think it was better for the white people, but like you get told that you can't like sit on a bench with your domestic worker, that kind of a thing. Didn't really speak too much about it, but like, well, my dad said that it was terrible because of the censorship, because the National Party government used to censor everything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I mean that was a different time. Like I mean, like
Right.
right now, you've got policies that are discriminating against white people here.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if you know about BE or anything like that, but we basically have affirmative action as law here. So Black economic empowerment. So what's going on here is, I think it was more recently they put in something where if you've got a business, your demographics of your business need to be representative of the country. So I mean, we're 82% Black. So if you've got a business over 50 people, you need to hire 82% Black people. So it's like I think it's one of the only places in the world where like the minorities are specifically targeted with law.
Yeah, and I wonder, things have changed because whites were always a minority there, but now that they're a minority that isn't in power, are they considered a minority? That's what I wonder about around the world. Can whites even be a minority? Because you certainly are there.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely are. But we're I mean, there's no protections for minorities here. And I mean, it's not only whites, it's Indians and coloreds, and there's a few different groups here. But I mean, even amongst the Black people, there's also tribalism.
Mm-hmm. Now,
So you,
is what we hear about here, where the lighter skinned people have more power, or does that work there? That's the way it is in America, and at least in the culture.
nah, no, I mean, so if you look at South Africa on a map, there are parts where there's like certain tribes have like a hold over them. So one of our provinces, KwaZulu Natal, is mostly Zulu, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Then we've got two landlocked countries. It's Lesotho, and the other one they changed the name, but it was Swaziland. And there's like different ethnic groups of people living there that they speak different languages. Well, yeah, and they've got different cultures and that. And there's also a clash with these people. So
in
yeah,
your basically daily business, how do you get along well with anybody? Do you experience like a racism, or do you experience negative things from Black people as you just go about your daily business?
I mean, not really, but there are times where it does happen. Like on a daily basis, no one really says anything. You don't really discuss politics with people. That's what I found. It's yeah, yeah. I mean, the way that some people make it out to be is, like they're like hunting down white people and
Yeah.
dragging them away, but it's not really like that. I mean, you can have like a pretty normal life here. I think where the pressure's coming from is mainly government policies that are like targeted at the minorities here.
Mm-hmm. Well, I've seen one of the video. I think Lauren Southern produced one of the videos called Farmlands or something. But um,
Yeah,
there's a video I've seen online many times. It's like along a highway, and it has a bunch of crosses on it, and they're all supposed to represent a white South African that was killed. Like, have you seen
yeah,
that before? What's the
yeah.
story behind that?
I mean, that's the farm murders. I think we have 50 people a year, and I think there's 300 attacks a year. So I mean, more than one a week where people get attacked on their farms. And yeah, I mean, they do horrific things to these people. Actually know some people that were attacked on their farm. They weren't murdered, but I mean, they were tied up and they had boiling water thrown over them. Then, obviously they couldn't afford to move. So they stayed in their house that night. The next day it happened again. Same guys came back and did that to them.
Wow. Is this roving gangs or who does these things?
Yeah, I mean, you've got like extremist political views here. I don't know if you've seen video clips of that guy talking in the stadium and he's singing that song "Kill the Boer."
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So that's Julius Malema, and he's from what it's the fourth biggest political party in the country. It's called the EFF, the Economic Freedom Fighters. And they're a 10% party, and they preach a lot of this stuff. And and I think people that subscribe to that kind of thing do these, do this to people.
Well, he's
Yeah,
saying,
but
I'm amazed he's able to say that in public because he's
yeah,
some kind of political leader. And no, I just imagine if the reverse was true, some white leader somewhere was saying that.
yeah. I mean, you'd go to jail. I mean, there's words you can't say here. You get locked up. But that was ruled as free speech. So yeah,
That
and
was
that
for
it's also like yeah, it's also like
yeah,
part
well,
of the problem here is I've heard you and others like Tony and David talk about it, like the two-tier justice system in the States. Got the same thing
absolutely.
here.
So basically, you're not old enough to have seen, the differences or whatever. But I imagine and I imagine for black people, they must think this is
Yeah.
better, obviously, because they've been empowered
No,
to some degree. But so what do you have any knowledge of the the farmers? I think they're all farmers. The 54 people, but some people say 8,000, but I think it's 54 that were
no.
brought over. Are these? And then of course the other side says they're rich and pampered, and they're very wealthy, and oh look, we're taking in the starving millionaires or something. What do you know anything about the people that were lucky enough to get migrant status?
Um, no, I mean not really. But going back to your earlier point where you were saying that, about some, like some blacks, their lives have improved under the ANC. Like that isn't totally true. I've heard from some older, black people, and they're saying that the country's worse off now. I mean, I
Yeah.
can't, speak to that, but yeah, I've heard comments that like, we didn't have potholes and we had electricity and things like that coming out of them, which is, it's alarming to hear it, but it just points at the decay going on here. And for those people that go, I mean, there's a few million white people here. I know nothing about them. There's just been, I think one of the guys' Twitter's come up recently, and they've been discussing that. But I think the people that leave, especially Afrikaans people that leave, I mean, they're doing it as a last resort. They're just trying to get out of here. They're saying pampered millionaires, but I don't believe that.
Yeah. Well, I'm just wondering why you said you have considered. I'm wondering why. It just seems like it's not a good situation, maybe potentially at least for any white. I just would wonder, are you there because of business, or is it just economically not feasible, or maybe you think you can't get immigration status, or
I mean, you got your whole family and everything here.
yeah,
And I mean, I suppose I'm one of the lucky ones. I'm not exactly, suffering under the oppressive laws from the government. I mean, I struggled to get employed when I first got my degree. I think I spent about 6 months looking for work. I know some people that even longer times. A friend of mine's a doctor of mathematics, and he struggled to get employed after he got his PhD. Just on the basis of his skin color. I mean, he's a brilliant guy. He's gone and he's done talks on his thesis overseas, and but he couldn't get hired here because he was the wrong person. Well, he wasn't the right color for it.
yeah, it's because I mean, however you look at it, I mean, back in the day, again, I'm old enough to remember when they were talking about Nelson Mandela, especially Winnie Mandela, who was
Yeah.
his wife and who had power. And I don't know if you heard of necklacing. The right wing used to talk about Winnie Mandela was a fan of necklacing, where
Yep.
they would light tires on fire and put it around the necks of their enemies. There's just horrible stuff. But
Yep.
and I think I think Winnie Mandela had some bodies traced to her or something. I don't know, but she got away with everything. But you can see even today in our society the same, because the Hollywood embraced Mandela like they've never embraced anybody else, and they were so this you got to end apartheid. It's so horrible. So when the ANC took over and Mandela, was freed and all that, Hollywood celebrated. Our culture celebrated almost as much as that. So it's not like you could say anything against it. So I think they're unwilling to accept, as you mentioned, the older blacks. They're saying that we didn't used to have potholes and stuff, and you have a parallel to this in Rhodesia, which Rhodesia was well run and everything, and then whites gave up power and it became Zimbabwe, and it is what it is. So it looks like South Africa's headed that way, but so what can you say to that? I mean, it looks like the black leadership, they don't have the infrastructure in place, or they're not doing maybe essential services, or what do you see that maybe that is lacking there?
I mean, it's everything. Like, it's horribly corrupt. I don't think we go a year without a major corruption scandal. The taxes are extremely high. It's just, like the corruption here is absolutely insane. I think most of the robots are out. So, traffic lights. I've actually found myself stopping at traffic lights that are working because I've been so used to them being out all over the place. And there's potholes around. It's just like there's just this decay. And even from a few years ago, the way things were pre-pandemic up until now, if you just, go outside into the street and you take a short drive, the way things were, 5 years ago up until now, I mean, it's just gotten worse. It's like this rot. And, I don't know if you've heard about the rolling blackouts here. The thing called load shedding.
A little bit, yeah. So that, but again, that's indicative, really, when people in charge are not competent. So basically, you're without power sometimes.
Yeah. Earlier this week we had it. Your power will be cut off for a few hours at a time. And
well, to be fair, I think we've had that. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. Now there's another problem that, people have battery backups and inverters, and that's when the power does come on. Like on Monday, we had an overload because of all the power that was drawn when it was turned back on, and all the inverters and that charging.
Yeah, well, to be fair, we've seen a little bit of that here in California, and that's indicative of the third world. The rolling blackouts and things like that, and unfortunately, we have way too. I mean, I live in one of the richest counties in the United States, and we have potholes everywhere, and our roads are in terrible shape. So I can't imagine what it's like in Mississippi and Arkansas and stuff like that. So it's not like we're doing a bang up job either. But we have largely a lot of the same kind of guys, kind of people in charge, and they're not all DEI hires, but a lot of them are. But I mean, are there any whites in power in the South African government now, or is it just completely black?
So I mean, what happened last year was we had an election, and a piece of the ANC splintered off into another party, into MK. So the four biggest parties in the country, it's the ANC, the DA, MK, and the EFF. And after the elections last year, what happened was the ANC didn't get the huge majority that they had gotten previous years because of MK splintering off. So the moment we now got something called the Government of National Unity. So we've got the DAs involved and some smaller parties like the VF and the ANC. And, we're supposed to have a coalition government. So the second biggest party is a white guy in charge, John Steenhuisen.
Wow.
But, I don't know what kind of power he has, because there was recently a big fight over the budget here. They want to raise VAT. So, they want to raise VAT from 15 to 17%, and there was a big fight, and the government almost collapsed from it. But it's a situation.
I imagine the whites that are in power there are subservient. I don't imagine they're very outspoken, or they kind of watch what they say. Are they that? Can they even afford to be? They certainly can't be critical of the black leadership. Are there any whites with any prominence that are pointing out how things have gone downhill?
Yeah,
Says, yeah,
the DA is actually has taken the ANC to court recently over things like BEE and there's always fighting going on here, which I mean it's actually great for the government to be fighting with itself instead of steamrolling us. So
hmm
yeah, but there's like a lot of pushback, and especially with the global spotlight that's on South Africa at the moment, you definitely see it. That people aren't getting steamrolled like they used to. There was, I mean, 5 years ago, what's happening now would never have happened because there was no international pressure. I mean, Trump's first term, he spoke a little bit about South Africa, and then Biden came in, and Biden wouldn't lift a finger for anything. I mean,
right,
if you look at the way the South African government behaved towards the US, that they were completely hostile, and we were getting like billions in aid from the US, and they're openly hostile, like supporting Iran and Russia and all these places. But that also, that goes back to what the ANC is at its core. And I'm not sure you're you're clued up on that, but
yeah,
basically, during the Cold War, the ANC was backed by the Soviets.
right,
So that was why apartheid got to carry on as long as it did, because the NP government wasn't seen as, Soviets. So we had proxy wars here, like we had the Angolan War, the border war. And that
right, right.
was, apparently there were Cubans up in Angola. And, after the Cold War ended, um, that was when apartheid ended pretty much. It was when the Berlin Wall fell. Then, we don't need to support South Africa anymore because the ANC is no longer a geopolitical threat.
Yeah, I don't. Back then, of course, in those days, the right wing, which was warning about, they had lots of things that they called Mandela communist. They said he was communist backed and everything. But again, the left here was in love with him, and once,
Yeah,
and I would say, what I think is remarkable about all this, I don't think that ever in the history of the world has one ethnic group ceded power to another, and you saw it twice there. You saw it in Rhodesia, which was
yeah,
a very well-run, prosperous country, and it's become the mess that's Zimbabwe. And then you saw it in South Africa, where you had the white leaders capitulating and giving up power. I don't, I can't, I just, can you imagine the Chinese giving up, I don't know, power to Japan or something? It's impossible to
yeah,
imagine, but I don't know
yeah.
how you feel about that as a young guy.
I mean, that. I mean, it just is what it is. But yeah, it is. I mean, they gave the country over to them. I mean, apartheid ended, and then it was supposed to be a time for healing, but instead we just got laws that promoted more division. And I mean, that the
Yeah.
ANC actually stated it in their manifesto when they got elected that we want affirmative action, but we don't want to take it too far. And that's basically what's happened here. Is things have just gone too far.
Yeah, well, I think that's the problem with any kind of affirmative action in our country. We had it. You could have maybe made a theoretical argument for it, and like right after the Civil Rights Act was passed, but beyond a few years, there was no need for it. And to be talking about it 60 years later is just absolutely ridiculous. And that's the danger of that. So, we think that we could learn a lesson from your government. What are the feelings over there about how do I mean? I can imagine how the black people there feel about Trump, but I mean, to be honest with you, I'm shocked he took 54 migrants because you see the hell he's catching for that. I mean,
Yeah.
imagine. I mean, this is. I mean, this. These people are going nuts. Their heads are exploding. This is the worst thing. I mean, this is when we've had millions, at least 4 million people flooded across the southern border just during the Biden administration. So, how do people like you, your family, everyone, what do you guys think of Trump from a distance?
I mean, so you praise people when they do good. I mean, I'm glad what he's saying about South Africa, but I mean, Trump. I
Hmm.
mean, like I wouldn't say I've got TDS, but some of the things the guy's done. like his crypto scams and like
Mhm.
the Trump coin and all this weird stuff. And I mean, like I actually heard that show, was it America Unplugged, where you're discussing Trump with Billy Ray Valentine, and
Oh
that
yeah,
got a little
yeah,
bit heated. Like not
yeah, yeah, yeah.
exactly, yeah, like I'm not
Well, I'm a
exactly his
Trump
biggest
agnostic.
fan.
No,
Yeah,
well,
you're
I'm a Trump
agnostic.
agnostic. Yeah, I'm an agnostic.
Mhm.
I'm in the middle of it. But I'm just thinking, over there to white people that may be thinking, "Hey, we'd like to get out." Are
Yeah,
they encouraged by the fact that 54 of them did
of
get out?
course.
I mean, I don't know.
Of course. Yeah, there's a lot of people want to leave. And I mean, it's not going to do any good for the economy here because, these people are paying tax and we already have an overburdened tax base. So, I mean, a lot of people are really happy with Trump at the moment. I mean, I'm happy with him. Like, just you're calling these people out and they're nonsense.
Yeah, well, that's the problem. He's what we have here. Like I said, I'm a Trump agnostic, but he's the only opposition we're allowed to have. So and you can see
Yeah.
he's done almost nothing but the, the tiniest thing. 54 people, because they're white, they're going crazy. I mean, we have migrants showing up every day here, and you're supposed to, we have Haitians and that community in
Yeah.
Ohio, which by the way has been people, eyewitness accounts over and over again of them eating dogs and cats, stealing diets, and oh, that's crazy. So all these people are lying. That's why I say in something like South Africa, all the people that talk about the horrendous things you mentioned about farmers, but so many people talked about murders and rapes and all those crosses along the highway.
Yeah.
Is that all? Do they make that up? I mean, what
Oh, that's
this
real.
yeah, some
That's real. But I mean, if we had to put crosses up for the black people here, I mean, there would be a hell of a lot more. I
oh
mean,
really? Okay.
yeah,
But
the
so is
violence
it so
amongst
so
themselves.
is it like our inner cities where it's a lot of black on black crime, you're saying?
Yeah, so like Johannesburg CBD is pretty much like that. Like it's black on black crime, and the crime statistics are wrong. I actually worked there for a few years. I was consulting at a bank that had the head office there, so I used to drive there every day. And I mean, yeah, I would talk to the security guards about what's going on outside this place because in the middle of Joburg CBD, it's terrible. It's an awful place. And they would say, well, they don't know, they don't speak the language because it's not local black people there either. It's people from up in Africa that have jumped the border and end up here. And that's also another thing that they don't really talk about is the xenophobia here, the black on black violence. Like it was a couple of years ago, they were going around townships looking for Zimbabweans, doing unspeakable things to those people. But yeah,
Yeah,
the inner city here is just, especially Johannesburg. I mean, that place is awful. I've had two
yeah.
guns against my head driving home from work out of there.
So is it legal for what's the situation with gun control there or whatever? Do they have something like a Second Amendment so everyone can carry there?
I mean, not really, but you can get a gun. Like you
Right,
can
it's like here, you can get it,
apply
yeah.
for a license. Yeah, you gotta have a license, and I think if you're carrying in public, you've got to carry it concealed as well.
Right, right.
Um,
Well, here
yeah,
the cities here, the big cities here, that have gun control laws, and they manage to get those guns in there every night, and they kill. The only black lives that don't matter over here are the lives that are lost every night in Chicago and all the other cities.
yeah,
They seem to
yeah,
care about those, but I think that it's interesting you talk about the huge number of blacks that are killed too, but they have a vested interest in keeping that under wrap and seal too, because they want to make it look like, I mean, what do they advertise like publicly? Do they actually try to claim things are going well there, like things have improved under black majority rule?
yeah. I mean, they like try to tell people how much better off they are, but I mean, everyone's just getting poorer and poorer with each passing year. Um, it's yeah, like because some people think it's great, and I mean, the people that do think it's great are government cronies. I mean, you get your tender contracts. No, you make a lot of money off the public. I suppose the same in the States with like how Elon Musk made his money there.
Yeah.
But yeah, we got the same thing going on here, except that it's it's under the guise of BEE. So we think Black economic empowerment, but what other people say is blatant elite enrichment, because it's almost like a mafia state. So it's people that are connected to the government, get government contracts, and they overcharge on everything, and then they send kickbacks to who gave them the contract, and it's just like this black hole of taxpayer funds. And that's,
Yeah.
and you walk outside and you see it, like, where did all the money go? Why is everything falling apart?
Yeah. Well, you see the typical corruption that you see in all governments, but
Yeah,
the competence is lacking. There's not,
yeah, yeah.
Mussolini made the trains run on. He wasn't the only one that made the trains run on time. I mean, we've seen some of that here in America as well. I mean, things have
Oh
gone,
yeah.
things like, I mean, you don't have to worry about that over there, but in terms of snow plows and things like that, things that used to be done here aren't done anymore. We don't have rolling power outages yet, but we lose power way too often over, drizzles and things like that. So because our power grids are ancient and you, so you, I so you basically you live more in a city environment, or is there something like a suburb there? Describe where your
Yeah,
neighborhood is like.
it's more like suburbs. Yeah, like stay in a suburb, but I mean, like you're never more than 10 minutes away from a township as well.
Yeah, so you have sidewalks and picket fences and all that. So you have basically the kind of suburbs we have.
There's no such thing as a picket fence. You got
Oh,
eight
no
foot
picket
tall
fences.
walls with barbed wire on them here.
Oh,
Um,
okay. So you all basically have to take those kind of precautions just against potential
yeah,
crime. Wow.
yeah. I mean, people live in like security estates where you pay your levies and you got guards patrolling and like a checkpoint at your entrance, and
Really?
that's like kind of how people live here. Yeah, so I think probably with the South Africans have gone over there, if they end up buying property, you'll see it again. I think
Uh,
I mean, it's like ingrained into you, the security thing, like security gates, burglar bars, that kind of thing, because, anything can happen at any moment here. Um, you stop at a traffic light and you always look, well, I mean, I always look around because, I mean, it's happened to me. I've had guns against my head when I've stopped in traffic.
really?
Um,
Wow.
yeah. Yeah, like on busy roads, like right in the middle of everything in Sandton. Like it happened to a guy I was working for a few years ago. They came up to his car window, he's sitting in bumper to bumper traffic. They pull out a gun and they're like, "Give us your phone."
Mm.
So
So
I
this
mean,
is
he
like,
had.
yeah, you had to, right? I mean, but this is by no means the worst part of the worst neighborhood. So I can't, I'm sure you can only imagine what it's like maybe in the poor areas where whatever whites are in those neighborhoods. I mean, I can't imagine what kind of life they have.
Yes, so like something that you see here is kind of like like groups of people live in places together. So there'll be like there's an area that's got a lot of Jewish people living there, area with a lot of white people, area with a lot of coloreds or you know Indian people. Like they'll all find neighborhoods or areas and they'll all like live there. So
Well,
there's a famous one.
okay,
Yep.
go ahead. No, go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt you. There's a famous white.
Uh, yeah, it's called Aranya. I don't know if you ever heard of that, but I think it's a company on paper, but it's only white people live there. It's white Afrikaans. They've got their
Mm.
own currency and they stick together. They're thick as thieves there. And recently they've also been brought up because they're saying no, we need Aranya to integrate.
Well,
Whereas
yeah, I imagine those neighborhoods have a lot of security, and I would imagine.
yeah, I mean everyone's got to have a gun in those places.
Wow. Well, my audience would be most interested, and I already see a few mentions in the chat. Tell us about this Jewish area, because we all they're all in the news now. What kind of, I mean, are there, because we always look in almost every country, you end up finding some Jewish power somewhere. Is there power there? The people you said the Jewish neighbors. I'm guessing it's their upper class. I'm going to take a wild guess here. Describe that for us.
Yeah, it's like near Santon, like around Sandown. There's like a lot of Jewish people live there. I lived around there for a few years. You know, on a Saturday you see them walking to synagogue and doing that kind of thing. But yeah, like a lot of the white people that were involved with ending apartheid were Jewish people.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
yeah,
I
and
think that's
I'm
that.
actually also Jewish.
Oh, you're Jewish too. So are
Yeah,
you living in a? Are you live? I mean, are,
no, well,
but your area doesn't sound like it's that wealthy or whatever.
no, I mean it's actually a great place to live. I live in probably, I mean, I would say it's probably the best place because, like I've lived in extremely rich areas when I had a job around there. So like near where everything happens in Santon, I stayed there. Now I stay on the west, and it's quieter. Everything you need you can get. It's not it's not crazy with crime, traffic. It's actually a nice place to live. Whereas that area where we're talking about where the Jews live, I mean, that's like right in the thick of it. You're going to sit in traffic there every day, and things aren't going to be
Really,
great.
really. That's wow. Okay, that's well. You said you sometimes had to worry about when you're in traffic. Is that when you're driving to work or whatever, or because
Yeah,
it sounds like your area itself is pretty safe.
yeah. I mean, like my area is pretty good, but if we go like a few k's down the road, then you're in big trouble. And it's like that everywhere here. Um,
That's true.
like yeah, you're just a few kilometers away from complete chaos.
I can't imagine what that's like. There's a question in the chat asking you, have you considered going to Israel?
No.
Wouldn't that be? I mean, it sounds like it would be
Yeah,
better.
I mean, I mean, it's like your heritage is Jewish, or you like descend from the Lithuanians that escaped the ghetto.
Hmm.
That like I'm not a practicing Jew. I've got family which are properly Jewish, but I mean I don't have anything in common with those people. I don't know them.
Yeah.
They're like second cousins and uncles, and the only time you ever see them is when someone passes away. So I wouldn't really
Yeah. Yeah.
like consider myself a full-on Jewish person, but
Okay.
it's just the ethnicity,
I'm
I
just saying,
suppose.
I think it just, as I understand it, is anybody can, if they can prove
Yeah,
they're Jewish, they can be allowed in there. I'm just saying it would probably be an
yeah,
improvement or a situation you got. I don't think you'd have to worry about these things.
yeah. I mean, the, but like life here, besides all of the stuff we're talking about, life here actually isn't like that terrible. I mean, if I want something, I can get it. I mean, I can import
Hmm.
stuff if I want something that they don't sell here. Like I can eat meat on a daily basis. At the end of last year, I was in Europe for a holiday, and I walked into a shop there, and I saw the price of a steak and almost fell over. Like, you can get steaks here. There's a lot of good things about this place. I mean, it's beautiful as well.
No, and I understand there's also a part that, I mean, there's people that tell a lot of us who've been bad mouthing America for a long time because, well, why don't you leave? It's well, because, my family's here and my roots are here. I don't feel like I should be driven off. So I'm sure you obviously have a lot of that same belief. Now you mentioned you were in the little description. I don't want to give too much of an introduction to you, but that you're involved in music in some way, punk music.
Yeah, yeah. I was played for like a few punk bands, like over the past. I mean, it's like 20 years now. I
Oh,
mean, I
okay.
was a
So you're not
small.
doing.
I was young when I started. Yeah,
Okay, so you're not doing it
and
now. Okay, okay.
well, yeah, not right now. I was last year. I was part of a band.
No, that's interesting. You got to keep your ears low. And I wouldn't, if I'm talking to somebody of Africa, my audience knows one of my non-conspiratorial interests is hippos. I mean, I'm just fascinated by hippos. Do you ever see hippos?
Yeah. Actually, near my parents' farm, they had some hippos around there, and they because they've got a farm that borders a game farm, and the one day the hippos decided to go walkabout, and they took down the fence and they went marching down the road.
Wow.
Um, and I mean, they're terrible. They are. I think they're the most frightening things in the world. Like, I don't know, have you seen a hippo?
Just in the zoo. Yeah.
I
Lots of
mean,
hippo videos.
it's
I can't imagine. Well, the most frightening thing about them is that they're, and I've studied up on them way too much. I've been obsessed with them all life, but I just the way they look is so ridiculous. But you have no chance if they're running after you. They're like faster than one of the world record holder sprinter. On me, they're incredibly how fast they are. So you're out. You're just dead if they're going to chase. So I find, and I think it's unfair that a lion gets the king of the jungle tag. When I mean, it seems like the hippo is. I don't think any animal could
yeah.
defeat the hippo. Again, we're kind of getting into a ridiculous discussion, but I'm obsessed with hippos.
I mean, they're, they're they're absolutely insane. And also, like, people think that they swim, but I mean, they just walk on the bottom of
Yeah, they
the
belt
lake.
like yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, they haven't. I
yeah,
mean, they're. I watch way too much video of hippos. I could just relaxes me, mostly. But it's at any rate. So theoretically, you could have a hippo or rhino, and you could have the baby just suddenly appear in your community, or is that impossible?
nah, not where I am now. But I mean, you're probably like 20 k's away from where it could happen. So, I mean, like, I mean, my parents don't stay that far from me now. Like maybe like 10 kilometers as the crow flies. And
Hmm.
I mean, there was a leopard in their area.
Mm.
And I mean, you know what they say about leopard is if you see it, you're already dead. Um,
Well, I think that's what
and I mean,
people are
like
so drawn.
that's yeah, no, that's
Do
like
you
being
still?
outside here in the bushes. It's just it's absolute insanity. You know, the wildlife here.
Yeah, that's what I can't. I mean, the idea that you could try to even count and these crazy white people that I guess they still go on safaris. That used to be a big thing, and some of them have been eaten by hippos and killed and so forth. And it doesn't stop them. I mean, are people still paying a pretty penny to go get up as close as they can to these frightening animals that could conceivably kill them?
Yeah. There's actually a lady that I know, and her friend that they knew a guy that had some hippos on the farm, and you know they would like go and pet a baby hippo there, and I mean the lady was like disemboweled by a baby hippo.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
yeah, like
Well, I
they're
remember
seriously gonna mess with those things.
the most ridiculous one I saw. I talk about virtue signaling Hall of Famer. There was this older couple. I don't know how old they were, but they were a couple, and they went to Africa on some kind of a safari or something. But anyhow, the crazy wife, the crazy woman, got too close to the hippo, didn't listen, and the hippo ate her. The crazy husband went back the next year or something to try to find the hippo that ate her because he didn't blame her him or something.
Gonna
There's
go off.
nobody else. There's nobody that's no other race but a white would do that. That's just the dumbest thing I've ever heard. But that's the way we do it here. But
Yeah,
and
you
so I
also
didn't mean to
see
use such. Mhm.
you also see some videos. So like there's the Kruger Park, and that's pretty much where a lot of the tourists go to see the big five.
Mhm.
Um, and there's videos of like game rangers shouting at American tourists because they're busy like making a ruckus and there's elephants around. And those
Yes.
things are all terrifying. Elephants, rhinos, even giraffes. I mean, a giraffe, like, you know, it's a tall horse. I mean, that thing that they swing their necks at you. I mean, you approach
Mhm.
a giraffe and the thing could just like headbutt you and you're dead.
Oh
I don't know if
wow.
you've
Yeah.
seen
Yeah.
videos of the two male giraffes fighting, but they like swing their
Yeah.
necks at each other. If you
Yeah.
get
Even
too
the
close,
people. Yeah. uh, we tend to think of giraffes and everything as being gentle, the gentle creatures that get killed, but yeah, they could definitely. Same thing with the zebra. I mean, a zebra can kill you with one kick. And once in a while they do that to the lions, whatever. They get a good kick in. But I've obviously, gone down the rabbit hole with hippos and stuff. But I want to get back to our main topic. So it's fascinating. I enjoy talking to people that are in other parts of the world, but especially in where you are, where this is. So basically, you're saying you sound like things are pretty good for you. You just have to be on your toes, and it's kind of like maybe somewhere like living in a big city here, like living in Baltimore or something like that.
Living in Detroit, something like that. But yeah, you just got to be looking over your shoulder, and you got to be careful of people approaching you. You always got to have your guard up. And I think like when I went over, like visiting overseas, you find in like some European countries, you don't have that feeling. And I don't know what it's like in the States if you walk around and you're always on edge, but here always.
I can't imagine that.
Yeah, like if you go out to a bar, I mean, you're making sure you know where your phone is, because that's the first thing people steal from you.
Oh, okay. So that's a big deal. That's the I guess that's the best case scenario to only steal your phone, huh?
Yeah, petty crime, but I mean, you can
What
be a
about
victim of petty crime anyway. Yeah, like
sure? What about the rape situation there? We hear about the rape rate being so high. I mean, what is that situation?
I mean, a lot of that's black on black. I mean,
Okay.
yeah, I know some people that have had that experience. And yeah, so I mean, that also comes down to being careful, knowing who you're with.
No, absolutely. I would imagine. Yeah. What kind? You said you're driving it. How is? Because I mean, I guess I'm trying to think of the U.S. had a different relationship with South Africa, obviously, when whites were in charge. But with the ANC, it's kind of, as you said, the U.S. gives them a lot of money, but they kind of,
Yeah,
don't
I mean, they
necessarily like the U.S.
yeah, I mean, like when Trump came in this time around, he cut them off. It's cut off a lot of their funding. But yeah, I mean, why would you give them money when they're basically working against your interests?
Yeah.
And also, like that's taxpayer money, but yeah, taxpayer funded aid. I don't know why the US gives anyone aid. People there have problems.
Yeah, tell me about it. You got Israel and Ukraine.
Yeah,
$350 billion
yeah,
to Ukraine. It's insane.
yeah, a guy in his green T-shirt, and I mean, like
Yeah, I could
that whole
resist it. I
conflict
don't.
when
Even after Trump made that big production to throw payment, he's still getting paid. They're still getting
yeah,
paid. So it's
yeah, no, I mean, like that whole situation is terrible. I mean, I don't have a dog in that fight, but just to think of the people that are just getting thrown in the meat grinder just so these people make money, it's disgusting what's going on there. Because I mean, the war's going to come to an end, and I mean, what's really going to change afterward?
yeah, doesn't seem, nothing seems to change from any of it. Just a lot of people die for no reason. But
Yeah.
in terms of so what when you in South Africa when you're having an election or just a general discussion, what are the main like political subjects? I mean, is there controversy about BEE, the Black Economic Empowerment you're talking? Are there any blacks that think it's wrong? Like you have some blacks here that are
Yeah,
against DEI?
yeah, of course. I mean, there's a whole spectrum of people. You get some people that love it and some that hate it. And, I've heard the argument from some black people that they don't agree with it because it paints them as incompetent, that they can only get, employment because they're black, not on their skills.
Mm-hmm.
And you get others that, own businesses and they say, well, because this quota thing affects everyone, especially here where you've got a lack of skills because of the brain drain going on. So people are leaving all the time, that there's jobs which there's very few people that can do them. And I think the color or the ethnicity of these people shouldn't come into question when you need someone to fulfill a specific task for you. But
Absolutely.
yeah, that's neither here nor there, because you have a company, and then what the bigger companies actually do here is they hire external consulting companies to do these kinds of, to do this kind of work for them. And the consulting companies, like the one I worked for, was below the threshold for BEE. So you've got these people, and working consulting, you got to be good at what you're doing, because you're billing per hour, and you can fire consultants. There aren't labor laws protecting external contractors. So that's kind of like how they skirted it. Yeah.
So you don't really get it. Have you ever been discriminated against because of BE? Have you lost jobs or anything because of that?
Yeah. So, I mean, not that I lost jobs. It's that, like, when I finished university, I studied computer science.
Yeah.
I looked for jobs, and I couldn't get them because the companies were only hiring black people for those jobs. And even then, like late in my career, I was working at a company, and there was a manager role opened up, and I wanted to go for it, but they needed a woman in that role, like that kind of a thing, whereas you're not really considered for it.
Yeah, that's. I wonder how many people there or elsewhere, because a lot of people here, the right wingers say, we're going down the same road as South Africa did,
Yeah.
because we've made
Yeah.
so many ridiculous. I mean, most people don't realize blacks are not even our biggest minority anymore. They're not even close. Hispanics almost double, because they're growing much faster, and you don't see those concessions made to any other group. It's just constantly to black people. I'm sure if you're watching American television over there, I assume you have access to that. You probably think the population of America is 50, 60, 70% black. I would think, if you're watching these, every commercial.
Yeah, but I think like Americans, when they talk about foreign countries like South Africa, they don't know much about them, but countries outside of America know a lot about America, because we see all the media. I mean, whenever anything happens in America, it's heard all over the world. So I think I'm clued up on. But I'd like to think I'm quite clued up on what's going on in America on a national level, or like the controversies around the Super Bowl. Like they were saying that if you had to watch that, you would think America's 50% black.
Yes.
It's not. Because of how American news proliferates, we've got an idea of what's going on over there. I mean, it's the loudest voice in the room.
So yeah, and so you guys basically, when you watch, I don't know what kind of South African TV you have, but you
don't watch any TV.
You don't watch any South African.
No, we've got a national. Yeah.
So you watch mostly American TV or British, or what do you watch mostly there?
Yeah, I mean, it would mostly be American TV or British, but I mean, not so much British anymore. I mean, the newest stuff that comes out of the UK is just awful. But yeah, I actually find myself not watching anything past like the mid 2000s, because it's just like crap. There's people that are shoehorned into things, and it's like entertainment isn't really about entertainment anymore. It's propaganda.
Yeah. Absolutely, that's the way it is here. If a movie passed, most movies that have been made within the last 5 to 10 years, especially, are just they're pretty much unwatchable. So it's well, it's interesting to know. Go ahead.
Also, like CIA involvement in movies, like that kind of thing as well. Like Hollywood being a propaganda machine, and I mean, like it's kind
of.
Yeah.
They have to clear everything to the CIA and the military. Yeah, they do. If they want to make a war movie, they have to get the cooperation of the Pentagon. Otherwise, they don't get to use their tanks and all the stuff for the props. So, Hollywood has long been at the behest of that. But I know it's very late there, Matt. So we probably kept you up late enough. And I wanted to get a flavor for what's are you outside? You look like you're outside there.
No, I'm inside. I just got my background replaced with a.
Oh, okay. Okay. I'm picturing you. I'm picturing you outside, maybe with a little bonfire, and hoping a hippo doesn't come up or something.
No,
But
no, I don't live in a tree house either. Um,
yeah, oh, that's cool. I
yeah,
won't. At any house, anyway, I appreciate you, and I hope things go well for you there. And if you find any kind of way to get out of there, follow the migrants over here, or do something if you can. Get your family to do it as well, because it sounds like it's a pretty bad situation. I can't say it's that much better here, but
yeah.
at least it's you're. I think there it just sounds pretty wild. But I appreciate you giving us all the details. Which anything you want to close with, or anything you want to promote?
I mean, nothing really. So it's yeah. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Well, I
It was
appreciate
good
you too,
talking to
Matt. And thanks for watching the show. And you take care. Okay. Good luck to you.
you. Thanks so much.
Okay, man. Take care.
Bye.
Thank you. Goodbye. Okay, that was Matt live from South Africa, from deepest, darkest Africa. Okay, so we're gonna have. I mean, I think we pretty much mined that for all we could there. Okay, I'm looking at the chat room. A lot of you guys have been talking about the usual stuff. See most of the usual suspects here. Um, there's John Bassiglon showed up, Jeannie Poole, Catherine Z, Ron Helton, of course, Chris Buck, and I saw Chris Graves briefly, Kian Acuna, Helen Rundell, Deborah Wheeler, of course, my friend, was there. Let's see who else. Oh, Kenneth and Powers. I don't think I missed anybody. White Wolf, the irrepressible White Wolf, who is now known as Timberwolf on Substack for some reason. He's changed his name from White Wolf to. I'm not sure what the difference is between a White Wolf and a Timberwolf. Twisted Piscal, good to see you here. And I think we saw John Rissom in here briefly too. So that's good. But so I always say, and I think again that I don't think America's going to go full South Africa, but there's a lot of parallels there, because if you look again at the we haven't literally ceded power, but we figuratively have a long time ago. And I think we did. We made moves like that back in 1965 with the Immigration Reform Act, so-called Reform Act, which unfortunately Ted Kennedy was involved in. I still think is mostly. I don't think Ted Kennedy was the brains of that operation. He wasn't the brains of too many things. That was Jacob Javits and Emmanuel Seller, and power is greater than that. But that changed our immigration policy. It flipped on its head. Up until 1965, 90% of all immigrants came from European countries. So 90% of all immigration plus was white. And really, from the 1920s until that Voting Act, 1965, so about 40 years, we literally pretty much had a moratorium on all immigration. Certainly didn't have any illegals. When some illegals tried to get in here in the 50s under Eisenhower, one of his finest moves, he sent them back. That's where you got the name Wetback from. That came from that incident. But the idea that a bunch of white guys, and this was in 1965, got around, and I know Chris Buchan's going to remind me that they weren't all white, but they look white. That a bunch of white guys got around in 1965 and decided, hey, we need to make this. We need to literally change the complexion of our population, because that's what they did. They decreed that under that act, henceforth, from that point on, 90% of all immigration legal coming into America had to be from non-European countries. In other words, non-white. And that's where you started seeing what they used to call the browning of America, or whatever you want to call it. And with the fall of Vietnam, you started seeing the boat people, and they had the boat people from Cuba that Jimmy Carter let in. And I remember when I was first started working, there were tons of Vietnamese immigrants that were in here, and Filipinos. Lots of the first wave I saw. And of course, then eventually you had our southern border open wide open. But the common denominator is they were all white. They were all non-white. So here you have 54 white immigrants, which is very unusual. You've got Russians here and there, but not This apparently was too much for them. 54 at one time. I'm looking at these comments. Jeannie said, Shmuel said she thinks the South African refugees would love this country more than the people that were born here. Well, I would think. They looked fairly young to me. So that's probably, you realize how long ago it was. It was that apartheid was that it's probably 35 years or more ago. So most of these people were kids probably if they were alive. So then that's why, talking to Matt, I don't know how old Matt is, but he's too young to remember apartheid, what it was like. Chris says he also lied. It says we want to change the demographics of culture. Absolutely. They certainly did. That was what they said. It did. Well, to be honest, the legal part of the immigration didn't really change the demographics that much. It wasn't the illegal immigration is what did it, which wasn't part of that act. Still doesn't change the unnecessary nature of the act. Jeannie says, do you think that Matt was probably a bit cautious in fear of repercussions from the government? Or probably. I think he maybe felt a little hesitant, and it looks like he wasn't. He doesn't have it all that bad there. So I think part of that is that maybe he doesn't want to. That all the people that catch my show on the archive version, he didn't want the South Africans that are listening to my show to say, "Hey, I heard you were on I Protest." I think he was just maybe being a little cautious there. Chris Buggins said apartheid ended officially in 1994. Okay, so a little over 30 years ago, 31 years ago. So, you'd have to be, probably at least 40 and at least 50 really to remember it as an adult. So, and I don't know how many of those people are still in South, but I just talking to Matt, I guess he said it's a good life, but he also, kind of alluded to, you have to be careful when you're driving and somebody could just come up to you, put a gun to your head and ask you your cell phone. I don't know. I wouldn't want to live in that. To me, that again seems like you're living in a big city, but I guess that's what it's like. Even if you live in a nice neighborhood, I guess you have to travel through it there. Jeannie Poole says we're civil people, taught to be cordial. Yeah, and that's the problem is that that's what's missing in our society, and I call it, and I think some people would say I'm being too kind, but I still ascribe, like Jason would, like I'm still ascribing it not just completely to race. I think I'm ascribing it to what I call ghetto culture because I think it is just a horrific culture, and I would want to give people the benefit of the doubt and see if you remove that culture. But there's no question about it. They have to, everybody has to act civilized. And if you watch these. It's ironic. Like a couple of years ago, one of my boldest things I've ever written, I wrote it. I came out as somebody who's suffering from African American fatigue syndrome, AFS, and people liked it. I just tried to be funny with it, but now you have people that kind of copied me, and they're calling it Black fatigue. I guess it's easier to remember Black fatigue, but it's everywhere now. It's all over Twitter and everything. Jason Whitlock was talking about it, and including a lot of blacks. And so I think at some point, when you have the videos, it's kind of like with the cops. Because ghetto culture is very similar to Cops Gone Wild. That's why, it's ironic that so many cops, are running into these black thug criminals because they have a lot in common. And in many cases, when they're swearing off against each other, you wonder, okay, there's no good guy here. But just like the Cops Gone Wild video, the outrageous thing cops have been doing, shooting people in the back, planting evidence and things like that, opened not enough eyes, but they certainly opened some eyes to the corruption there. More and more people now, because of social media, I mean, you're almost every day there's a video popping up of an overweight black woman tearing up a McDonald's or some other fast food restaurant because she didn't get the right hot sauce or something. And people are saying this is something you don't see any other race of people do. You just don't. And like Whitlock said, people tell me, "Oh, we got white people to do this." I said, okay, I'm willing. Please send me the white examples of this behavior, and I'll I'll put them on the air. You can't because it's not there. And so this is this is unfortunately when you have these and yes, I know it's not, of course it's not. They're not all like that. Of course not. I don't generalize, and I don't, I never do that. But this is indicative that this is something, a behavior that directly comes out of that ghetto culture. And it's antithetical to a society. This is, Deborah Willow says, we're all born knowing right from wrong. Well, we should be. But, I think that, like, for instance, in that latest video of the overweight black woman tearing up the fast food restaurant, and this is the second video I've seen like that where she had a kid, the black woman had a kid with her. She's got her arm around a little boy, maybe 10 years old or something. He's absorbing all this. She's screaming at the MF for this, MF for this, throwing things, knocking things over while she's got her arm around him. Now, what, I guess it's not quite as bad as you witnessing, your parent killing somebody, but imagine the lesson learned there. How much deprogramming you'd have to do to that kid. It's like being a cult or something, to overcome something like that. And that's the thing I think, we need to, I think, drum home that you can't have this kind of behavior in a civilized society if you don't hold them accountable for it. And they're not being held accountable. And that's the problem. So hopefully, maybe with this black fatigue thing, it goes far enough and catches fire, maybe they'll do it. Because really, the only thing to stop this is ridicule. And I wrote my latest Substack, and if you don't subscribe to me on Substack, you really should. You should be ashamed of yourself listening to the show and not subscribing to me on Substack. But it's I protest just like this show. It's Donald Jeffries at Substack.com. But my latest one has gotten a lot of play. Paul Craig Roberts published it, said it was one of the most brilliant essays he's ever read, and it's called Planet of the Fat Black Statues. And I had a lot of fun with the new overweight black statues that are popping up everywhere, nonsensically, even in Italy and Netherlands. Why is Italy and the Netherlands, why do they have a statue of an unknown fat black woman? What did black women have to do with Italian or the Netherlands culture? It's ridiculous. Makes no sense. So, but if you had people with bigger platforms than me doing that, and enough of them, if you had Saturday Night Live having sketches about it, or you had comedians that had big audiences, other than Leonardo Giannini, who tries, but doesn't quite have the big enough platform yet. That's how to shame it, to shame the thug culture for what it is. Whitlock pisses these people off because he talks about how gay rap music is all the time. He's making fun of them, having what does he call getting rear-ended. He says they're getting rear-ended by each other, which is a great way to put it. But and I know that really ticks them off. I hope he has some good security because he needs it. Because man, he is. This guy is as bold as can be, and we need to call it out because they're a presence in our midst, and they are a louder and they're the loudest presence in it. They're a very loud, noisy minority, and they're just they're not held accountable. And you still have tons and tons of crazy white people, especially white women, defending them. Jeannie Poole says, "Did you see the brawl at the deboarding cruise guest in Galveston?" No, I didn't see that. There's so many of them, though. It's hard. There was a Mother's Day brawl I saw, which was lovely. Again, you guess the race. You don't even have to. When you hear it's a Mother's Day brawl, you know what it's going to be. White Wolf says, "Tabitha's not going wild." Yeah, well, that's how he's a psyop, having those statues everywhere. Kenneth and Power says, Tupac's 100% a dick licker, Jay-Z too. Well, yeah, but even beyond that, and again, this is why I said people think Jason Whitlock ought to appreciate me. I promote the hell out of his show to what little degree I can get him new listeners or new viewers. But one of the most amazing videos I've ever seen. He unearthed this early video of interview of Tupac Shakur. It looked like he was in high school or maybe just getting out of high school and college, very young. This guy was as effeminate. He looked like an interior designer or a hairdresser. He was so effeminate. It was ridiculous. Anybody who saw him would say, oh, he's obviously gay. He had no, a persona about him at this guy, thug life. all that stuff. So again, that shows how these guys are found ahead of time. They are ahead of time, and they are installed. He was installed to play the part of had the thug life tattoo, and everybody think he's tough. I mean, you saw that early interview of him. He wasn't tough, and I don't think he was, uh, being a big player with that many women. It certainly didn't seem like it. That was his preference. Jeannie Poole says the commercials and shows send out a message. All the messages they send out, the messages they send out are awful. The message they send out is that if you're a white guy, you're stupid, and you basically should just shut up. You're mansplaining. They send out the message that any female of any size, a little kindergartner or whatever, can beat up any male of any size. Certainly can outthink any of them. And that every minority is cool and a computer expert and runs along and sexy, and it's just ridiculous. Oh, cool. Chris Buchan liked it. I'm glad it cracked you up, Chris. I bet it would be fun listening to the AI voice read it. Tupac is not gay, Twisted Pistol says. Well, I don't know, is he dead? I don't know. Not anything right now. All I can say is you watch that interview with him, man, he's an actor. I can tell you that. He was definitely an actor. Kenny from Tower says John Cena thugonomics is more. Well, I think John Cena supposedly has cancer now or something, but he, last year he went through what I call a humiliation ritual. I talk about it all the time, and it's exclusively for men, mostly white men, but and it's just to humiliate them and drain the masculinity out of them. He came out naked on the stage of the Oscars for some reason. Of course, he was covered up, he was holding, but you could tell he was naked. And the idea was, again, think of I don't know, think of any female cultural figure that's I don't know, that's in his Charlotte Johansson or something that would come out like that, naked, holding a thing and acting stupid. He was acting ridiculous. They wouldn't do that because it's a male humiliation ritual. That's why they've dressed men in drag and for comedy forever. It's a humiliation ritual. It's just not that funny. I mean, why is men dressed? I've never understood men dressed as women. I always thought that after the few times I saw it as a kid, I said, well, this is dumb. Why do they keep doing this? It's a humiliation ritual. Chris Buchan said they should put a big bucket of KFC in one arm and that statue and a cell phone. Well, they do. They do. At the statue in Italy, she's looking down at her cell phone. Twisted Pistol said he wants to debate me on Tupac. Well, first of all, I don't. Thankfully, I know very little about Tupac Shakur because unlike a lot of white people, I'm not going to claim I ever listen to his music. I don't listen to rap. It's stupid. But all I can tell you is that was a different person. That's an actor in that original interview. I guess that was his real personality. I don't know. Jeannie Poole said, my husband thought that I was saying real fat black women were being placed all over the world. He thought they were possibly space aliens. Well, that makes as much sense as the statues. I mean, there is no logical explanation for it. It's absolutely ridiculous. But again, this is, I suppose it's racist to even talk about it. See, that's okay. That's what he's pacing. That's what Kenneth and Power said. Yes, he did. Kenneth and Power says he also colonized to China. Yes, he did. That was not. That was really really pathetic. LeBron James did the same thing. It just I don't understand these guys that have probably I don't know $100 million or whatever they've got. How do you not have the balls to say no? I'm not going to apologize to them. I mean, what do you think they're going to take your $100 million away? Maybe they can. I guess I don't know. Jeannie says she must go home and make dinner. Hope to get back. That's nice, Jeannie. I've mentioned before my wife's name's Jeannie, and she spells it just like Jeannie Poole, Jeanne. Deborah Wheeler says rap isn't music. That's for sure. I don't know what the hell it is. I mean, to me, in music, because you can make rap without any instruments. I think. I don't know what the hell those DJs are where they ruin records. For those of us who are record collectors, we used to cringe when I'd see them take a perfectly good vinyl and just, scratch it while, going backwards to make that stupid sound. It's like that's music? I don't know. Because again, to me, anything anybody can do, like the tambourine or something like that, anybody can play tambourine or maracas, things like that. I mean, something like that cowbell. Um, it's not doesn't take talent. Just like modern art doesn't take talent. If anybody can do it, it's not art. It's not a special skill. But that's where we are now. We have art that anybody can do, and rap music, but same thing with rap with singing. I don't know if any of them. Maybe some of those rappers can sing. I don't know, but they're not singing. They're talking in that stupid ghetto voice and using ebonics, and I don't get it. And they have the beat, the drum bum beat. Of course, everything has to have a beat, but it's very. I really don't understand it. That's why I've never had any respect for that, because if you can't, and say you don't have to. I mean, I think you should. I mean, some people I guess that are really. There have been some really Kate Smith back in the day that were really, really, really great singers. So people have a great set of pipes. That's wonderful. Jeannie Poole says, "Can I apologize to white males on the part of white females? I know it's not worth much, but there are many of us I have to believe that." Well, that's very nice of you, Jeannie. That is, a lot of times I seem like I'm being too too hard on white women, and I don't mean to be, but they're just, you know, I've said conservatively that I think 1/3 of all white women today are clinically insane. I pretty much stand by that, especially the younger ones. And it's just, there are lots and lots of good, a lot of good ones that like my work and say very nice words about me. So I'm certainly not going to blame. I love white women more than anything. John Lawler says, "Nice shirt is always on." Thank you, John. I thought you'd like that. Okay, what is it? What am I? I'm replacing a Twisted Pistol, who's I guess here too. I'm not sure what Twisted Pistol. He always praises me, but then he's always kind of poking me. Don't criticize what's CNP? I don't know. CNP talking points. Candace Owens. What's a Candace Owens talking point? I'm not sure what that is. Cat from the Time said original hip hop was the vibe. Listen to Ren from Wales. He's 34 and struggled with health for his adult life and actually talks about the divide. Well, I'm sure, again, I mean, I remember, my son was young. Eminem caught my ear. It was because he was white. I don't know. His lyrics were more clever. I don't know. So some of that stuff I could listen to. It was like, wow. Today I'm cleaning out my closet. Kiana Kuma says, "Thanks for the apology. Overdue apology." And he says, "We've been oppressed by tiny bird brain." I don't know about that. That sounds good, Kenny. Well, give me his. That sounds pretty good. I wouldn't mind interviewing him. Get me his contact info. Would he? Let me send me an email or something, and with more details about him, what he's done. And we have lots of people oppressing us, Chris. I mean, there's we don't know. It's just basically, obviously, we know that something is behind, because however you look at it, it's not natural for there suddenly to be such an implosion of relationships between males and females. That's not natural. And good to see you, Chris. Thanks for. And again, if anybody can help Chris, maybe throw your Cash App or whatever you have in the chat where people can help you. Chris is forever struggling, and he could use your help. So anything you can do to help him would be appreciated. Jeannie says, women are more psychotic than bird brain. It's true derangement. Maybe once we're intelligent, but now it's just rabid. Well, there are different kinds of intelligence. They're nothing better than an intelligent woman. I love having a conversation with a knowledgeable woman, but it's hard to have an intelligent conversation with a lot of people now, but certainly with women. It's there's nothing natural about the sexes suddenly. And again, it goes back to feminism, and it goes back to who created feminism, who pushed feminism, why, what was the point of that? I mean, I can understand. Yes, you can say women's rights, going back to the suffragettes and everything. Yeah, there was that certainly would appeal to me if I was a woman back then, to like my grandmother that never got out of the pantry and things like that. Of course, they shouldn't be second-class citizens, and certainly anybody that ever mistreated their wife. And I know a lot of men used to, as Andy Griffith said, one of the early Andy Griffiths, give their wives a what for, which means they were pretty much, and uh, that's horrible. But we've gone so far in the other direction, and if anything, I was hoping, because I knew a lot of young feminists when I was young, and I was trying to be cool with them, obviously, and I wanted everybody to have equal rights. But I was hoping it would make for kinder and gentler society, and it didn't happen that way. What happened is you got harder-edged women, and you got soft soy boys, and that's it's not good. Jeannie Poole says, "No, no, Don, you're speaking the truth. I am embarrassed at the behavior. You're one of the few that I read and listen to." Well, thank you, Jeannie. I appreciate that. I'm glad to have you here, and I love the fact that I see so many female names as well too. I mean, sometimes I think I have almost as many females listening and reading me as male, which is kind of surprising because I do push the envelope a bit, but I'm not misogynist, and I love women. But it's I never thought it would be where you would have a day where the idea of female empowerment would be that they would get to serve as cannon fodder and troops, or no wins wars, or that they would get to be hard ass CEOs that would be even more unreasonable, and relentless than the males we've come to know and love. I mean, what is the idea? Why not bring the traditional feminine virtues to that understanding? Um, Leniency. Same thing with women, female judges. I mean, they're horrible. I mean, they are lenient when they shouldn't be. Certainly, if it's if it's if it's a Carmelo Anthony that stabs a kid to death, a teenager like Austin Metcalf to death, and yeah, you reduce his bail from $1 million to 250,000. Sure, why not? But just it's just a shame. So when you look at what's happening, and now the point where I don't know what the marriage rates are today, but they've tumbled. I don't know what the relationship. I don't know where young people to meet. I don't know how. I don't even know. I don't know. Do they even have parties anymore? I don't know. We used to have parties all the time when I was young. I guess they have bars still, but it just doesn't seem like it's the same thing. Everything is eHarmony and Match.com, all this stuff where you swipe to the right and swipe to the left, and it just seems all ridiculous. Chris Bucket says half all marriages end in divorce. Well, that's been for a long time, yeah. But now you're going to just have fewer and fewer marriages, and it's Kian says bars are infernal hellscapes. Well, yeah, they never were my favorites, but I can't imagine how wonderful they are now. But so yeah, I'm trying to so when you look at the things that are going on now, it's and you look at for instance, like you had in the cultural thing, you have something like Bruce Springsteen, who I loved. I used to love Thunder Road, the Born to Run album. I mean, I listened to the hell out of that stuff. I went and saw him in concert, but I knew he was a typical lefty like everybody else out there, but he's just gone nuts. And he went and said some awful things, calling Trump treasonous and everything. But the problem is, if you saw Trump's reaction, I mean, this is, again, I cannot believe he's not an actor. You have to read what he wrote. I mean, he responded like a 10-year-old would. He called him a bunch of names. I mean, it's beneath the dignity of the president of the United States. That's why I have to believe that he's an actor. I have to call him Trumpenstein. If you read what he wrote, there's nothing but a Trumpenstein would write that. So it's absolutely ridiculous. They almost threatened him. But then again, you have all these blacks on TikTok that are coming out and have threatened the white South African migrants. I saw this one woman deluded. Oh, cool. Deborah Rose says Leonardo will be the Quite Frankly show on June 3rd. Yeah, well, I know. I hope you've seen me on there, Deborah. I've been on, quite frankly, many times. Frank and I go way back, and Leonardo has responded to me a couple of times. So I'm going to try to get her on this show. We'll see if she's on frankly, maybe she'll come on mine. Yeah, that's Susan Olson, my friend Cindy Brady from the Brady Bunch. That's her favorite show. Boy, she loves that Frank. She loves, quite frankly. Um, and Chris Bucket says Springsteen, another no-toe. Well, Springsteen is not a Jew, Chris. I just say he was raised Catholic, believe it or not, even though his name is Springsteen. It's I guess like a Swedish type of thing or something. But yeah, I mean, good music. Same thing as Dylan. You need to listen to more Dylan, Chris, who's seemingly a born again Christian now. I'm not sure, but he's I don't know what Dylan is, but a strange guy. But okay, Chris, I thought that's what you were inferring, but well, I think he was pretty damn good at one time. But again, that was my music. I'm older than you probably, but at any rate, so you have these things going on, and you have Trump trying to this with this, and I just wrote an article on it from the American Free Press, and I'm going to have to go back and redo some of it because the House committee actually didn't push it through. I thought they were going to approve this budget, this big beautiful bill. And is he? What is he looking for? What happened to this? No tax on Social Security. That's not in it. No tax on tips and overtime, I think, is in it, but it's hard to say. Both sides are claiming different things. I looked at the tax cuts, and again, always under Republicans, more money you make, the more of tax savings you get. So again, that's why they can't. Republican politics, as usual, is not the party of the common man. It's just more. It's ingrained in them. So. But luckily, it didn't pass. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. But again, because they weren't going for the right kind of savings. Trump passed the biggest defense budget in the history of $1 trillion defense budget. That's just ridiculous. How does that equate with what Doge is supposedly exposing? Kenneth in Power says, Bruce lives over town from me. He is a nice guy if you meet him in public at the Jersey Freeze, but he just lost it with his left spine. So, yeah, he's again, I can't. How could I possibly think of a guy as a rock and roller he's toured with Barack Obama? I mean, Barack Obama was touring with him for a while. I mean, really? That's who you want to tour with? I mean, it's just, it's a shame because those are the guys, and not only Neil Young. There's a lot of these guys. I mean, they all end up being horrible people. But yeah, Chris says he doesn't live in Ashburn. Of course, now it was always ridiculous. He evoked the blue collar sound, while of course not being anywhere. I worked at the factory, and obviously he never worked at a. I think he's one of those guys. He started out very young, who probably never worked a job in his life other than music. So he has absolutely no way to relate to average people. If you've never worked a job in your life, and again, I think that's pretty obvious he didn't, because he was a teenager. He was playing bars in Jersey and everything. Catherine Z says, thought Bruce and Bon Jovi owns Farmsteads and music. Yeah, absolutely. And Catherine, if you read my book, Survival of the Richest, I talked about, I used both of those guys as examples. Lots and lots of taxpayer money and tax breaks go out to people like that who aren't farmers, but they get tax relief or tax rebates or something because the land is technically considered farmland, even though they're not farming anything on it. And it's absolutely ridiculous. And that's just one of the many things that are wrong with our system of the way the elite benefit. But I mean, the idea that, these guys are getting relief as farmers, and that's, my Survival of the Richest is full of that. So those people who think I'm a conservative need to read Survival of the Richest, because I have a lot of that stuff in there about how rigged it is for the elites. Chris Buggin says, Bon Jovi has a big mansion off of Rumson Fairhaven. Like a bluish guy. I did work there many years ago, and I was like, oh, cool. I never liked Bon Jovi's music, really. I don't know. I do respect the fact I think he's still married to his high school sweetheart, because I mean he's a guy like that can imagine not to say he didn't sleep with groupies, but he must have had them crawling all over them. So, but at any rate, so what else are we talking about here? What else is going on? I'm trying to think of the migrants, the big thing in the news. And again, if you looked at this one woman, Whitlock, I think played these maybe it was Mark Dice played these crazy black people on TikTok, same ones who were defending Carmelo Anthony, and basically call him a hero for killing a young white boy. But they're threatening, and again, they said I thought it was against the law to threaten somebody, but they basically threatened the migrants, and they're saying like you don't have Secret Service, so just watch, don't touch anything or something. So what are you talking about? Jersey white trash. Well, we used to go to Atlantic City a lot, so I've seen the Jersey white trash there. Atlantic City's pretty much dead now because they have gambling places closer, but that used to be the place for people in my neck of the woods to go to when you wanted to go to casinos. Thanks, Kenneth, and appreciate it. I look for your email. Deborah Wheeler says, "How was Mother's Day at your house, Donald?" Thank you. That was it was good. We my daughter was sick, so she couldn't get together. So I think we're gonna do that this weekend with her. But the three of us, my son and I, and my wife had a nice dinner, and it was nice. She got a gift. My daughter always gets this fruit basket thing, one of those kind of the upscale things she always orders for holidays. So it was very nice, and I miss my mom. My mom's been gone since 1987, so it was it's a time to be sober and reflect, and so yeah, we do holidays. We always have. We don't miss too many holidays around here. My wife is very festive, so we have a lot of festive stuff going on. Kenneth said, "I worked with one of those Jersey white trash gals about 50 years ago in Cessna Bon Jovi. She played." Yeah, the Jersey. I mean, wait, and what? You talk about 15 minutes of fame. Jersey Shore. Does anyone remember? Was it Snooki? Snooki and what the situation? I mean, what was that? 10, 15 years ago, maybe? They were household names. The situation. I mean, what are those guys doing now? I mean, it wasn't, what were they on? MTV? I don't know what they weren't on a major network, but I assume those, I assume they, made some kind of money, but boy, you talk about 15 minutes of fame being up. I can't remember all of them. There was another girl that was much cuter than Snooki. What was her name? I think she had a nickname too. I don't know. Chris Buchan says he's talking about the Jersey trash way. Well, yeah, they are. That's Jersey, and I think Jersey Shore did a good job of exposing that. And that's why I've never, that got in the way with me with girls when I was young, because no matter how cute they were, I never liked that kind of low class stuff. I just, I don't know, I just didn't. It was always, a way to see too. I mean, they couldn't hide it that much once you talked to them for a few minutes, and it just, I don't know. It's just very, no matter, how hot you are. MTV, Chris Buchan said, yeah, that was it. Yeah, MTV. That's what I thought. But they were during the time, that was the that and the Osbournes with Ozzy Osbourne. I mean, what it just, So we already were definitely down that path. I mean, talk about a bunch of stupid shows. I mean, those two, and I think and the Kardashians, of course, and those were, my kids might have had them on a few times, and just in the backgrounds watching, Ozzy Osbourne, he couldn't understand anything he was saying. And basically, they were celebrating the fact that he was so burned out, you literally couldn't understand anything he was saying. And his crazy, shrewish wife, and his messed up kids. I mean, it's just. I thought, how is this entertaining? I don't know, but this is whoever. And John Barber calls himself the godfather of reality TV, and in many ways he was, because of real people. But that kind of reality TV was a great idea, because it was it showcased that average people can have talent. They can have, they can be interesting, and it's in many ways Candy Camera was probably the first one of those, but they didn't really they didn't showcase people the way John did on Real People. Candy Camera was just the first Punked. Later you had Punked and all these shows copying it, just practical jokes. So okay, we can fool people, but in terms of just celebrating just low class behavior, and that's all it is. John Basketball talks about growing up Gotti. Okay, but okay, I heard of that. I never saw that one, but I mean, that's probably not that. You're right. He was the thug that victimized anyone. Exactly. But that's probably not that much different than the oh God, what the hell is the God? I'm getting so terrible on names. The show on HBO with the that I never watched about the hitman. God, The Sopranos. I mean, it was a fictional thing, but it glorified it. It basically showed that a guy who was a hitman could be a regular guy, a family man. What? He killed people for. I mean, I think that really desensitized people, and it was very popular, obviously. Oh, cool. Kenneth from Paris says, I didn't know Jamie Kennedy's another one who was famous for 15 minutes. Now he has a conspiracy pot. I didn't know that. Chris Buggins says Sopranos is a good show. Well, I understand. Everybody says, and those mafia movies are, the mafia stuff is fascinating. Watch Goodfellas or stuff like that, The Godfather, and it definitely draws you in. I mean, that's it's talking about a macho culture, but it can be really gripping, emotional stuff. But you realize you're still kind of glorifying it, and I think in many ways it's like Chris knows all about it. He says Tony's based on Vinny Ocean's Palermo. Oh, Catherine said, yes, Dexter. I never watched that either. Yeah, I guess that's even beyond that. Where it's about a serial killer as the hero who goes out and tries to stop others. Why would a serial killer want to stop other serial killers? I don't get that. But again, I confess to never watching any of these shows. Like I said, I saw Jersey Shore was on in the background a few times. I caught some of it. Not Sopranos. No, the Kardashians and the Osbournes again. Just they were on in the background, and it was like I didn't understand. I don't get. And so whoever took that concept that John Barber had, John Barber did not have that. I don't think had that much of a low budget because they wanted location a lot, visit these people. But this is the greatest invention they ever had. These stupid modern man where they had the housewife shows and all that. And you talk about no overhead. They just show up and it's like a glorified home video. And it's usually just people like shouting at each other, arguing, just dysfunction that we see in everyday's lives. I don't know why that's entertaining. I don't know. I've never. Chris Buggins said he loved Boardwalk Empire. I never watched that either. I heard about that. Cat in Paris says best show is Lost. I did watch Lost, and it was very well done. But I mean that ending was just come on, they really had no way to end it. I mean they set up a premise that how are you couldn't end it, and that's why as a writer when I write fiction. And why I respect, Charles Dickens for writing a story like Christmas Carol, things like that, is because the hardest thing to write when you're writing fiction, especially if the more compelling your story, the harder it is to write the ending, especially with any kind of supernatural type elements in it. And Lost had tons of supernatural elements in it, and so they wimped out. They didn't write an ending that made any sense. Catherine is sensitive to too much dark energy, so I cannot watch that TV stuff. Well, I don't blame you. You're not missing. Chris, I understand what you're saying. I mean, the mafia is fascinating to me, to everybody, but it's. And again, if you want to know why Today they glamorize thug life and they glamorize ghetto life. It goes back to the 1930s when Hollywood started glamorizing the gangsters, and it's no no accident that the black gangs call themselves gangsters too. And it was, they glamorized the thugs and the guys, the Jimmy Cagney's types. They just they slapped their dames around, and the dames loved it. And the machine guns, firings. What I mean, that was they never painted those guys out as the horrible, evil people they were. And you go all the way to The Godfather, where it may have tried to show them the way they were, but what happened is people started saying, and they do have some kind of twisted principles. So, which in many cases are better than your more high moral than say your average politician. Because like Tony Soprano and those guys, most of them were Catholic. They'd make sure they go to mass and probably ask for absolution after they hit somebody. I don't know, but the average politician's not going to do that. Yeah, he did. Lana turned around a gangster boyfriend and Sandra's. I can't tell you. It broke my heart when I heard Donna Reed, one of the most beautiful women. Oh God, Mary Bailey from It's a Wonderful Life, that she had an affair with Johnny Roselli of all people, who was probably involved in a bit weight in the Kennedy assassination. I mean, broke my heart. I thought, really, you couldn't resist that absurd thug. Come on, you couldn't have slept with Cary Grant or something? Ridiculous. But let's see here. Scripted figures never beat true stories. And Raybo, good to see you, Raybo. Yeah, but what my point was, the hardest thing to write is a great ending. In a fictional story, to wrap things up and to have people say, and so what they've done in Hollywood, especially now, a lot of these modern movies have a good premise, intriguing premise. It draws me in, and then they just simply don't end it. It's The Lady and the Tiger. If you remember, that was the first short story to really do that, and it was kind of cool because as a one-off, where at the end of the story, the guy has two doors to choose from. One behind one is a lady, and behind there's a tiger, and then it's left up to you. Which one did he choose? So, but it's a very lazy way to write because you're not wrapping things up there. You're letting the reader write the ending, and that's not the way. Chris Buggin says Cary Grant was gay, or at least I know. John Barber, he tried to pick John Barber up, a young John Barber, by the way. I know it's I don't want to think about that. Cary Grant's my idol in terms. I thought that was. I'm not gay for him, but I think he's was incredibly good looking, and he should have cut a swath through Hollywood. I don't know what the hell he was doing, but said he was interested in Randolph Scott. John Bascon said John Gotti's son rode a mini bike in front of the neighbor's car and was killed. Oh, neighbor had no chance to avoid the Gotti kid. Neighbor was later cut up by a chainsaw and disposed of. Yeah, well. Chris Ray, yeah, Chris Buchan, no wonder you're such an interesting guy. You grew up around a bunch of Russian Jewish gangsters, huh? Well, that's what a lot of people say. That's what a lot of people on the right say, is that the Italians, because they're very colorful, because of The Godfather, the movie, they get the credit or the blame for the mafia when really it was Meyer Lansky and a lot of Jews that were the real power. Is that true? I don't know. Michael Collins Piper thought Meyer Lansky played a huge role in the JFK assassination. Let's see. No, I'm Spirited Puppy. I'm not sure I understand. Gravel Pit and the Stinky Goat. Would make her okay. I never watched Monk, so I don't know. But so yeah, the point. I don't watch. I watch no TV now. Other than I watch. What I do is I will watch an old movie still on Turner Classic Movies. I've TiVoed one, but I've seen most of them, so I don't usually watch that. I sometimes still watch investigation discovery shows like American Monster and Evil Lives Here, but I've seen most of them again as well. So I will. So yes, Kenny Finn Powers, Northbound. Cary Grant was so great in Northbound Express. Yes, he was. See a movie called Talk of the Town. A younger Cary Grant, unbelievable in that. It has some of the best dialogue. It was great. Chris says, "Have I ever heard of Simeon Mogilevich? Most powerful living mobster is a Russian Jew." I have not heard of him, Chris. Yeah, that figures that we probably wouldn't know the real leader. Or the real leaders are behind the scenes, as you know, whether it's Illuminati or whatever. We don't know. But yeah, so I don't watch any. There's It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia was, I thought, a very funny show. We were watching that. Kenny from Paris said X Files was great and lost its way. Yeah, X Files was good too. It was really good too, but it kind of meandered around a lot, and I didn't watch it when it was on. I don't know why. So I caught it later in reruns, but the reruns are when they show them. A lot of times they're not in order, so you get lost because they have really compelling arcs. And but yeah, that's great stuff. With the kid's little sister being disappeared, maybe abducted by UFOs, and him on a quest. Yeah, very very cool. Chris says I should do a book about organized crime, and I was connected to. There's only so many books I can do, but and at this point, I think that organized crime was a problem. I don't know to what extent organized crime exists anymore. I think the mafia is kind of passe because I think organized crime as it is now is just kind of the government. It's the way things run. Chris says the X Files is the best '90s TV show, especially when it was first. Yeah, it was one of the best, right up there with Batman the animated series. I love animation. Runham, come back, Runham. DeVito is hilarious. Oh yes, he is. Yeah, and I think they finally canceled that show. I'm not even sure. It runs. It's like South Park. South Park barely exists now. I don't know if you're even, and they're on some kind of pay channel, so you can't even watch it. But those were the only shows that I was watching. My son had always used to watch every superhero show. So you had uh, Superman and Lois was on last year, and I think they finally ended that series. So that's not. So there's really there are no shows I watch now at all. So what I do is I watch some of those investigation discovery shows, maybe if it's ones I haven't seen, or American movie classic that I've seen probably plenty of times. I'll watch it again. I turn to classic movies. Other than that, though, I watch YouTube. Turn on YouTube. I watch Jason Whitlock's Fearless. I watch Mark Dice. I watch the Hodge Twins. I watch a lot of those kind of things. That's what I find. Leonardo Janney. Um, Take over the underworld by intelligence and communist fast. The mob outlived it has, Chris. And I think that I don't know. It was kind of hard back then. The CIA was so it was hard to tell where the CIA began and the mafia. There was a lot of overlap there. Now I think it's just basically the entire government and the business world is organized crime. And as I said before, but those mobsters at least had some kind of twisted morality. They seemed to have, like, I don't think they messed with kids. Yes, they had a little twisted principles. Um, Kenneth says he watches nothing new. Yeah, he watches. Yeah, see, I missed Mad Men. What is the what is the one everybody says? Breaking Bad. What's the one with the drug dealer or something? I've never watched that. It says great. I was watching Walking Dead for a while, but I got tired of that. I mean, again, interesting story, but way too much. Again, way too much America 2.0 stuff. Because again, 50% or more of every character, dead and living, was black. And it just mixed race couples nonstop. It was just too much hitting you over the head with it. But again, an interesting premise, but couldn't stick with it. Yeah, Breaking Bad, Better Call Saul's the other one. I haven't watched that either, but yeah. And maybe I'll watch one of those. But I just, I just don't get into TV shows that much. In terms of if I watch shows, and I'm just going to watch something that, uh, old shows that I like, of which I've already seen plenty of them. And The Wire, I've heard a lot about that. Yeah, Kenneth Embarrassed. Yeah. Chris Gray says Breaking Bad was great. Everybody says that, so I probably need to watch it. I'm sure they're going to find it somewhere on one of the channels and binge watch it or something. But it's Sons of Anarchy. I've heard about that too, Chris. I heard Sons of Anarchy was good too. Yeah. So there's lots of, but I just I'm not that much. Basically, I spend all day up to through dinner online writing and researching and podcasting and things like that. And then in the prime time, I watch what little TV I watch, and it's all TiVoed. Everything is DVR'd. I watch nothing live except sports sometimes. Deborah Wheeler says, "Do I watch the Osprey live cam in Pax at River Park?" No, I don't. I'm not familiar with that, Deborah. That's the Osprey live cam in Pax Sutton River Park. No, I don't. What's that? I'm not sure what that is even. But again, I watch very few things online. I mean, on TV. Kenneth in Power says, "Yeah, yes, I do have a DVD, and I'm grateful for all the DVDs I have because I think eventually they're going to take down. Um, I think eventually they're just not going to, especially let the old movies, because they don't want people to know that there was a different world at one point." Deborah Willis says, "Better than any Eagle cam watch on YouTube. I'll have to check it out." Twilight Zone, Chris, of course, Twilight Zone's great. X-Files is very good too. Let's see. Yeah, I like all the suggestions, but again, I've discovered some good, and I tell you, I found this one guy, and it's so irritating. My son told me about it. His name is Matin Even or something. I've never. This you're talking about somebody who was installed. This kid's like 16 years old. He has over 1 million subscribers on YouTube. He was interviewing Matt Gaetz and all kinds of big names, and he's Jewish, shockingly, but he talks with this really stupid, obviously contrived accent, which is not clever at all. It's not funny, and that's his whole thing. I said, how does he have over 1 million subscribers? So I mean, obviously, great powers. A lot of money is behind that kid. But I guess look for big things from him, Matan Even or something like that. I don't know how you pronounce his name, but I look at him, and the other one is another Jewish guy, Lex Friedman, I think his name is. Oh, wow. Talking about Mr. Excitement. I mean, this guy is so boring. And he has, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., all the big guests. He might have even interviewed Trump. I don't know, but it's how? How do you have that? How do you have millions of subscribers? So that's why when I look at these YouTube people, it's like, where do you get these subscribers from? Chris, I didn't think you liked him, Chris, but he's just such a no talent bum. When you look at somebody like Alex Jones, and you see how entertaining he is, what he offers, you know why people would watch him for the entertainment value alone. Mark Dice can be pretty funny. I mean, there's some of these people are, the Hodge twins are very funny. Whitlock, but a lot of these people, you look, and you're saying, how do they? You're exactly right. He's a cure for insomnia, Chris. Charisma of a wet paper towel. He's got no charisma at all. Yeah, and that's what it just amazes me. And I see that, and I'm thinking, how hard I struggle to have 4,000 some subscribers on YouTube. I don't use it much, but I don't know. How do you get 1 million? I don't understand how that works. I will never understand it. And again, that's why I subscribe to the theory these people are being installed. Because when I look at him, I don't say, "Oh, wow, no wonder he's got 1 million subscribers. He's really talented. He's really funny. He really brings something different to the table." Yeah, of course I understand how he's, no, I don't understand it at all. So, but I appreciate all the viewing tips. Chris says, Bruce Buchan says, all rigged like the courts and the elections. Oh, yeah, of course it is. As I say, these Whitlock's term installed is perfect. These guys are installed, and you can see them when they come out of nowhere, and somebody like Tim Pool's another example. There's guy, again, I don't understand how that guy has millions of whatever he has. To me, he's better than Friedman, but he has very little charisma. He doesn't have any kind of talent or anything. I don't, is the stocking cap the thing? I don't get it. Jennifer says he'd rather listen to Bon Jovi than Tim Pool. Yeah. And, you have guys, and Pool, when he's pressed, he always does. He's the one that said, he could understand the self-defense thing with with Carmelo Anthony. That was self-defense. And recently came out and said, you know why people are upset over illegals voting. So he does that kind of stuff all the time. Install. There's no question about he's installed. He total gatekeeper is right. I mean, that guy, I read up on him a little bit, tried to learn background. You can't find out much about their family backgrounds, but it's probably what you think it is, wealthy. But he was featured in Time magazine or something way back in the Occupy Wall Street movement. And he was listed as one of the top 100 young voices of the internet or something. You know, when a mainstream outlet like that says something like that about you, you know you're being installed. So if he asks me on a show, I'll go on there. I don't think that would happen, but Chris says Whitney Webb too. Well, you know, I think Whitney was more her own personal wealth. I'm not sure. Whitney's been on the show a couple times. She just doesn't answer me anymore. But yeah, yeah. Kean says just be bald. Exactly. That's what the rumor is, that he puts the cap on because he. I mean, yeah, it's just okay. I guess it's become his thing. But I mean, I don't. Personally, I don't understand it, but I've watched him, and again, most of these guys. And he did have Luke Rakowski out there as his co-host for a long time. I think Luke is finally giving that up or something. So, which is interesting. Luke's better than that. Well, Kean said he actually saw a clip. Yeah, well, that's what the rumor is. But somewhere removed, I bet he did. Yeah, he's doing everything. But at any rate, we're just about out of time here. So I enjoyed talking with you guys. Hope you enjoyed the guest. So again, if you haven't subscribed to me, so I protest on Substack, Donald Jeffries at substack.com. And again, you know, we are here every Friday at this time, 5 to 7 p.m. Eastern. So again, thanks everybody for watching, and we'll see you next week, same time. Take care.